Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. Welcome to End Times Talk. Hello, Darth Ego and Nightlev and Laura and Danielle. It's good to see y'all this morning or this afternoon. It kind of seems to me that everything is beginning to fall apart at the seams. We've been in this, Iranian conflict, since February or late February, and we're about almost a week into April, so we've been in this about a month and a week, and I think that globally speaking, we're starting to finally see a little bit, just a little bit. Remember, like I've said before, speaking along the lines of being a gardener, and I'm just going to use like peppers for instance. Like when you harvest peppers, there will be a few that ripen up, and then there's a few more, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're in a flood, and it's just overtaking you. And you have peppers right and left. You got to dehydrate them, and all sorts of different stuff. And then there's a trickle, and then another trickle, and then the harvest is done. And I'm kind of seeing this trickle beginning to happen. The effects of the Strait of Hormuz being shut down, beginning to take place, in markets across the globe are beginning to be affected. And last time I went live, we were talking about how the price of Brent crude isn't what people think it is right now, that they're actually projecting the futures more along the lines of, if the Straits of Hormuz are going to open up, and Iran has outright said, basically, even when the war is over, they're not opening up the straits. Like, they're angry, they're like a child throwing their temper tantrum. And I mean, so is Trump, but they're all a part of it. They're all part of the same club. All these world leaders, all these globalists, they all have an agenda to bring about a new world order. And I believe that agenda is going to be complete in the year 2030. I think that's their goal. I think they've set a standard, and they want to meet that goal in time. And so, with that being said, basically, big things are happening in Australia right now, and I want to show you what's taking place, and I'm going to show you a news article about what's going on right now, and I'm just going to let this speak for itself.
Good evening. We felt the tremors, but today it was an earthquake as the war in the Middle East hit with full force. As Iran burned, the value of Australian shares melted before our very eyes.
The stock market was on track for its worst day in 5 years. $130 billion wiped early, hitting superannuation balances. A late rally eased the red wave slightly, but petrol stations in some parts of the country have started running dry as the price of oil takes off. Tonight, the warning: inflation is set to spike again, inflicting even more pain on every Sydney household.
When the servo says sorry.
There is nothing. Your probably best bet would be to drive to Canberra.
In Karoonda, east of Adelaide, they're referring customers to the next petrol station, 50 kilometres away. The pumps are dry.
School buses can't fill up. Don't know how the kids are going to get to school.
One servo in South Australia has begun limiting how much you can buy. In Kingaroy, northwest of Brisbane,
if this keeps going on, it's going to be dire.
This fuel wholesaler can't supply 90% of the farms needing diesel.
They're running into harvest shortly, mate, and we won't be able to get it to them.
Fuel drying up in Australia. The economic ripple from Iran's regime putting a death grip on the Strait of Hormuz, shutting down 20% of the globe's exported oil and gas. Oil rose steadily as Middle East tensions grew. Today, it turned vertical, roaring towards $120 a barrel in just minutes. The ASX plummeted to its worst day in almost a year.
This is the kind of scenario that's been war games since the 1970s.
Saul Kavanagh warns the oil shock will drive inflation. Food prices in particular are likely to jump, and Australia's reserves of fuel are likely too small to spare us the pain.
We're completely, unlike in gas, we're completely connected to international prices, and we're completely dependent on imports. Australia produces almost no oil of our own anymore.
This is not a supply problem, but we're seeing a huge spike in demand.
The Energy Minister says Australia has 35 days of petrol in reserve, only slightly less for diesel and jet fuel. But critics say successive governments have let Australia's energy independence slide.
Australian production has been declining because oil in Australia is more expensive to produce than it is to import.
Gone from shelves in some Bunnings, jerry cans, as Australians look to stockpile petrol. The US president posting oil prices will drop rapidly when the Iran nuclear threat is destroyed. A small price to pay. Only fools would think differently.
Wow.
For anyone doubting the impact of the Middle East, more than $180 billion has been wiped off the value of our shares in a week. About half of that today, though not everyone is a loser. Energy companies that export gas like Woodside and Santos stand to benefit from the fact that that block on oil in the Strait of Hormuz is also a block on Middle Eastern gas. Suddenly, Australian gas is really a matter for energy security with our Asian neighbours.
So it's far surpassed the point of things are going to get better, and I have more information to share with you guys here in a moment. But it's unreal what's taking place right now. The impacts are far and wide at this point. I really think that this is going to be the big one, and this is what they need something to take us to that Agenda 2030 dystopian future that they've been warning us of since 2017 or 2015. It's either 2015 or 2017 that since they've had the Agenda 2030 all thought out. So they've been planning this for a long time, and they've been planning it, for well over 10 years, 11 years or something like that. And so, this is the culmination of all their plans beginning. And we've talked about, in the past, we've talked about Atlas Shrugged and how John Galt and Atlas Shrugged say that they're going to stop the motor of the world. Well, there's a few different things that a motor needs, but mainly a motor needs oil and fuel. And so when you have no oil, when you have no fuel, the motor seizes up. And it seems to me that they're seizing, the motor of the world right now. I have more information for you here. Give me a moment. Listen to what this gentleman has to say.
If you look at the drop in oil consumption, right? This is an implied, this is a supply side drop in oil consumption. This isn't because we're in a recession and so demand has dropped. If you look at oil consumption year over year globally, going back to 1965, global oil consumption has only been negative 3 times. 1973 oil shock, it was down 1 to 2% going from memory. The 1980 double dip recession that we had here in the US, 15% interest rates, et cetera, it was down 4.3% year over year. And in COVID, when we shut down the world, it was down 9.2% year over year. Right.
I want to say real quick, though, what I'm trying to show people right now isn't to scare people. And the people that have listened to me the past 3 weeks that I've been on this subject, warning people that this is coming, those people had a 3-week warning. Think about that for a moment. A 3-week warning to prepare and get things in order, to make a plan. And this, again, is me throwing up another red flag to you guys. What this gentleman is about to say is no joke. You need to take this seriously.
Right now, the oil supply out of the Gulf, depending on what net adjustments you make for strategic petroleum reserve rundowns, et cetera, we have lost roughly 7 to 11% of the world's oil. And it's supply side. What does this mean for markets? The world, this is going to sound hyperbolic, but it's not. It's literal math. It's guaranteed balance, double entry bookkeeping, math, supply chain reality. The world economy cannot survive a 7 to 11% loss of oil supply. It will not survive. We can debate, is Europe going to go first and collapse? Is Southeast Asia going to go first and collapse? Will America collapse first?
And you need to understand, the ball's been rolling. Even if they opened up the Strait of Hormuz, now there's a ripple effect that's already been created. The oil that you're getting right now, the gas that you're getting right now, the fuel that you're getting right now is from all the shipping that has taken place before the straits were opened up, before the strait was closed. Okay, so you're getting this, the fuel you're getting right now is from the way that the world was working before. You have not yet begin to see the impacts, especially in America, of what is to come. All right. And there was some arguing in my comment section in one of my past videos that I noticed. And, people were saying, oh, America has plenty of oil and all this stuff. And there was actually an expert guy, a guy that seemed to know what he was talking about. And he was talking about that the oil in America is thick or thin. It was one or the other. It was like thick or thin. And so they need thin. So it was, I can't remember the way he put it, but he said it was about the type of oil that we have in America isn't good for making gas. All right, that it takes more effort to make the gas in America because the type of oil that we have here in the States. And I don't know if this is true or not, but if it is true, all right, I think people are going to really begin to see a pinch, as things begin to progress. And I have more information I'm going to share with you today, but I want to finish what this gentleman is saying, but I wanted to kind of put it in there that you haven't yet begun to see the actual impact of this. You're still receiving fuel from when the straits were open. The straits are closed now and have been closed for a month and a half. That fuel has worked its way through the system and has it's been received at the pump already and all that stuff. And that supply that had been there, but they wouldn't have released 400 million barrels of oil reserves if they weren't scared. Okay, they don't just release oil reserves like that. All right, there's obviously something big coming, and they're trying to ease the crash as much as possible. It's like a plane that the engines have cut out, and that plane is gliding, and they're just doing everything that they can to be able to land this plane as softly as possible. But the plane has stopped. It's in the air, midair. It has stopped. The engines have stopped running. They're trying to bring it in for landing, but it's how bumpy that landing is going to be that I'm trying to prepare you all for. And I'm trying to say, all right, you need to take your positions in the plane, grab your head, put your head down, you know what I mean? Take the best position possible for this crash landing that's about to take place. The reason that the elite want to crash land this softly and as lightly as possible with as least damage as possible, because when people begin to see that there's no hope for a financial future, they'll quit paying their taxes. They'll quit, paying their mortgages. It's going to be a free for all, and it's going to be complete destabilization. All right. And if that takes place, the elite lose out on the money that they do have coming in for right now. And they're greedy. They're gathering up riches for the end of days. That's what their goal is. You know what I mean? And so, I really want people to second think, for those of you that can physically garden, to rethink, if you aren't going to have a garden, to rethink getting even a small garden going. Start with a 6-foot by 10-foot plot and grow, do some research about what veggies grow best in your area, and look at the way that the farmers are growing things and learn from that. And you can go out to the woods and get topsoil from the woods and bring that back. And, there's all sorts of things that you can do on a lower budget, even fertilizer, composted material, things like that. Start composting your compostable goods now to generate fertilizer for next year. This is the thing. Iran has said they are not reopening the straits. All right. And I'm going to show you something here in a little bit, but I'm telling you, this is the fact. And so just like, I told you, 3 weeks ago that this was going to be like this. We're 5 weeks into this thing. All right. And I'm telling you, all it's going to take is about 3 more weeks, and you're really going to start to see the impact of this thing in America. All right. That's all it's going to take. Just a hop, skip, and a jump away, and you're finally going to start to see it and feel it. And I pray that you take me seriously now before it's too late and you don't have the resources available right now. Fertilizer at Tractor Supply Co. You can get pellet fertilizer for gardens and stuff like that. Last year, I think I paid, 20 something bucks for like a 50-pound bag. So even if prices have gone up a little bit or even doubled, you can still go get a 50-pound bag of fertilizer or a 25-pound bag of fertilizer at Tractor Supply Co. and get the fertilizer that you need for a garden for the future. Still compost your, your compostables and create whatever fertilizer that you can. Even if you have to pile up, your dog's, excrement or whatever, and take it to a corner of your property and let it decompose there and add organic matter to it. There's people that have composted with worse manure, even human manure. They do it all the time in North Korea. All right. And so you got to be careful of worms and parasites and dog matter and things like that. So you would want to let that go for a year or so, really let it compost. Right. But chicken manure, rabbit manure, if you have a live trap, you can catch local rabbits and, raise them for meat rabbits, and you can keep the manure and compost that into your compost pile. So start to do something now is what I'm saying. Don't wait till it actually, you see it hit your pocketbook and you hit the gas pumps. Do something beforehand to get prepared, because in most places now is the time for planting season. So I'm going to let this video finish out, and then I'll continue talking about it.
But the global economy is a certainty. It will collapse if we keep oil supplies down.
What's the likelihood we go there and we stay there? What's the timeline? Like if we go to 7-11%, for how long?
Well, we've been there for 6 weeks. And I think if we get to mid-April, like you're already seeing flights. I just woke up this morning, a discount airline out of London Gatwick canceled all flights, can't get fuel.
Yep.
So now you're going to start having tourism fall.
Do you agree with
supply chains?
That's very true. It was announced in the UK that the last shipment of kerosene was just made this week, and there's no further known shipment arriving in the UK, which is pretty crazy. But it also tells you that this is a policy outcome, because nobody seems to care. There's no countermeasures. There's alternative ways. There's things you could do if you wanted to. They don't. Why? Because this feeds into this other agenda that's ongoing, and that we mustn't forget. We mustn't take our eyes off that. And that is, I've just explained sort of the background with the European Union. It's actually central planners wanting to centrally plan more and more. And it looks like they're going to use this opportunity to impose digital controls and the types of restrictions of individual freedoms that will be at least as bad as during this COVID psyop, or worse. Of course, now under the excuse of, there's no energy, you have to stay at home, you can't use your car.
You think that kind of stuff is possibility?
Oh, yeah.
It looks like that's what they want, because there were so many policy decisions actually ahead of this, closure of the Strait of Hormuz, that already indicated that actually they want to restrict energy usage.
This is who? This is
European. This is the European administrators. I wouldn't say leaders, because they're not really the decision makers.
Who's debating them? Who's arguing with them and disagreeing with them?
Nobody's arguing with them, because it's a dictatorship. When the they can do anything. They can put somebody in prison without legal course. They can sanction people without legal due cause, and that's what's happening already. That's why they're cracking down on freedom of speech. This digital service.
What is that today?
And I'm going to show you in a little bit how there's countries already cracking down on free speech, where people are trying to warn people what's to come. And this is the thing, if this channel goes down for speaking the truth, all right, I do have a X account. This is, if you want to write it down real quick, this is my X account, and I go live over there as well. These same videos that are on YouTube, I broadcast over on the End Times Talk account, and then I also have Rumble. This is my Rumble account, and I also broadcast my lives over there. It's set up, the way that I broadcast over there. The label for each video, it doesn't change over there. It's just, this is an important video or something like that is what every video is labeled. And I just forget to go over there and rename the videos over there. But so you can either choose x.com / end times talk with a capital E, or rumble.com / C / end times talk. And you can find me in those two places, because I mean, I'm not going to stop warning people. And if they're going to take me down for that, then so be it. Give me a moment here. I am going to show this. I'm not going to play the video here because the woman in the video is in a bikini in vacation, and I just don't think that's appropriate to show. But there's people that are obviously pro-Trumpers right now, and people are literally thinking Donald Trump is making travel cheaper. No, he's, the economy of the world is collapsing, is what it is. This travel influencer lady, it's Nastia Abroad or something like that. It's got her thing right here. The travel influencer is saying because of the war in Iran, tourism in the Maldives has significantly dropped. She says even the famous water villas are now essentially empty and are discounted as much as 80%. All of them are empty. Almost all of them are empty. And so, it's a bad situation that's brewing. Tourism is becoming affected now. And hey, Nuki Poo, it's okay. Sorry, the mailman's here. My dog's gonna bark for a minute. So the reality is that this trickle effect is beginning to show all around the world. I have a friend that I just talked to. They just canceled their vacation for this summer, and he's, law enforcement, you know what I mean? And he's decided, he's to cancel his family vacation. That breaks my heart that they have to do that. But the reality is this is the pinch that's taking place right now all over the globe, but it's not really hitting, America just yet, because America does have a lot of extra oil and things like that. But it's going to impact us eventually. And I think it's going to impact us within the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to finally start to see that flow get really messed up. And so, sorry, my dog. It's okay, Nuki Poo. It's okay. It's just a mailman. It's okay, buddy. Come here. Come here. It's all right. Sorry about that. He's funny. You don't like it when people come around, so best not mess around or you'll find out. Anyways, I'm going to show this next one here, and I'm sure everybody's seen this. But I'm what's wrong, Nuki Poo? I don't know what's going on. He's fine. So Donald Trump is saying that, tomorrow is going to be power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one. So he's saying he's going to go after more power plants, more infrastructure. He says there will be nothing like it. Open the blank straight, which I was surprised he went that far to say that. He says, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. And then I'm not even going to repeat this slogan here. I was surprised that he said that. I think it was a dig at Muslims, kind of, taunting it in their faces. But if I was a Christian, I'm a Christian, and I ain't going to say that. You know what I mean? I might bring up the name of Allah, or, how they say Allahu Akbar or whatever mumbo jumbo they say. But to say that, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? I don't know about that. But with that being said, all right, Iran has come out with a response. So mailman detonates the nuke. Yeah. Yeah. He I'm really good friends with my mailman, and, just we've gotten to know each other over time. And if it's not the right mailman and it's a stand-in, he goes crazy. But he knows the one. But so Iran has come out with a video, an AI video, and I'm just going to show that to you here. It's 20 seconds long, and then we'll kind of break it down a little bit.
I feel like I'm screaming, but I'm on it, so I'm leaving. Got a pain of the mind, need some change in my life. What is it I'm seeking? Does this life have any meaning? Live a dangerous life. Let's run out. out its home.
So that is what they released. All right. And Syrian girl who is, not over the middle, but she lives in America, but she's pretty well privy to the things that are going on over there. She says Iranian embassy posts meme suggesting they are open and ready for Armageddon in response to Trump's bridge and power plant day tweet. And she's saying that a murder of crows in Islam is a dark omen, is what they're saying. And the embassy of Iran and Pakistan, the embassy of Iran in Pakistan, in Islamabad, power plant and bridge wrapped in one, done deal. Done deal is what the embassy of Iran is saying. So this was their response to that. So they're ready for Armageddon. To them, this is their holy war. To them, this is their apocalypse. You know what I mean? And that's the reality of what's taking place here. This isn't going anywhere, and it's not going anywhere fast. The world is at a standstill almost. Yeah, we're seeing, the last bit of the trickle of the flow of oil the way that it was. And yeah, there's people that are going to capitalize off of this. There's definitely people that are going to capitalize off this, but what really worries me is that famine is coming more than anything. Famine is coming. Okay. That's what I'm concerned about, is the famine that's coming. All right. And Jesus said they will hear of wars, rumors of wars, nation rising against nation. The Greek word there is ethnos, like I've said before, and that's where we derive the word ethnicity from. So war, rumors of wars, ethnicity against ethnicity, kingdom against kingdom. Jesus said that there would be famines, and that's one of the signs of the beginning of sorrows that I've been kind of waiting for. Not that I'm excited that it's going to come, but that, I didn't really, I know there's a portion of America, 1 out of 10 households is dealing with hunger. And that absolutely breaks my heart. But relatively speaking, there's food banks and food stamps, and even though a lot of those things are abused by people, we're still able to get food into people's gullets. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give you a tip today that's going to help you be able to prepare for this in your area. I don't know what it looks like in your area. The laws could be different. Please be careful. I don't know the laws in your area, so make sure you know the laws in your area. But I'll be honest with you. I think it's going to get to the point where dumpster diving ain't so bad. And I know when those sell-by dates pass, they legally have to throw all that stuff out. I see videos all the time of people coming out with hauls that fill their vehicle to the brim. There's only enough room for the driver. All right. There's only enough room for the driver. And so what I'm saying is that you can go to grocery stores and just take a look at the dumpster. As long as it's salvageable and it's in like a packaging that's not been popped or, cut or something like that, you can use that to stockpile. You can do it for free. You can literally stockpile for free. You just got to be humble a little bit. And here's the thing. If you're going to go out and you're going to get free stuff like that, share it with your neighbors. When it finally does come time, share it with your neighbors. Like, show people the same blessings that God has shown you. And I believe God is going to take care of his people. There are many things that we can do to prepare for this, even if it's not financially feasible right now. And it's taking everything that we are to stay afloat. You know what I mean? And so I just want to put that out there because, diesel shortage equals food shortage. It's just the reality of it. This is the reality. And farmers, they don't run on hope. They run on diesel. A single harvester, those things with the barrels that kind of roll and harvest, the grain or corn or whatever. A single harvester burns 100+ liters an hour. 100+ liters per hour. That is a lot of diesel. And when there's no diesel, there's no planting. When there's no planting, there's no harvesting. And when there's no harvesting, there's no transport. Some experts are warning that the reserves that we have could start tightening by mid-April. And there are also rumors online that they're talking about in other countries that have already declared an energy emergency, like we had in Michigan. The first time in Michigan, the first time in America, we've had an energy emergency declared by one of the states. Federally speaking, in 2025, Donald Trump on January 20th declared a national energy emergency. Everything's already in place for your tyranny to begin to encroach upon you and your household. All right. But they're already saying in other places that a lockdown in mid-April is coming. And they're saying, and I've been saying that that's when the pressure is going to finally hit the system in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And when it does, the food supply chains aren't going to just slow down. They're going to break. That's what's going to happen. And I really am trying to say that this is your warning. I've always told you when I really see something big on the horizon, I'm going to come out with the warning. I'm going to tell you. You need to understand what's actually coming and get prepared immediately. All right. The Freedom Train International, has reported on these sort of things. You can look them up and they actually are pretty good at helping people. But the reality is that you don't want to be scared in this, just be prepared. And there's different ways of preparing. There's different ways of going about gardening for free. The Amish, they have resources that they've built up on to be able to do that. But, there are ways to start a garden without worrying about, going out and spending money. Now, the most that it's going to cost you is seeds. I would get your seeds, I would get your seeds of what you're going to grow immediately. All right. And I'm not trying to say that this is absolute. The Straits of Hormuz could open tomorrow. I don't think they're going to. All right. But even if they do, there's going to be a period of time and a transition, to go back to the way things were, which we all know normal isn't coming back. Jesus is. But if you will plan, and if you will focus, you'll kind of be able to handle whatever gap there is, if there's going to be a gap, if this isn't a full-blown collapse that's taking place. I've already shown you Australia is almost out of fuel. If this is where we're at with it. And I'm gonna put this out there. In the Philippines, they've declared a energy crisis. All right, and people need to know this, but they're saying that there's a fuel lockdown coming in the Philippines, and people are speaking out against it. And the Philippines, and listen, this is proof that it's a lockdown coming. They're doing the same crap that they did to us during the pandemic lockdown. All right. But the Philippine National Police, the PNP, all right, on Monday, April 6th, that it will pursue criminal charges against individuals supposedly spreading false claims. This sounds like anybody who spoke out against the vaccine or any of the stuff that's all truth coming out now, all right, was arrested back then or, cut off back then or canceled back then. You were an evil person if you spoke the truth back then. And then all of a sudden, people are coming out and saying that this 10-part plan that the IEA is implementing and how the Philippines are following it is signs of an energy lockdown coming, that it's coming. And they're saying that these people are spreading false claims about an alleged energy lockdown, and authorities are moving to contain misinformation amid the fuel crisis. So right here, and I think that, wait, hold on. Give me a moment. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. All right. I can pull this up in a new tab here. But so the reality is I'll actually go look at this once it loads up. Hold on. All right. So give me a moment here. And they're really going hard on this. I was just looking this up where they're trying to say it's a fake lockdown, PNP to go after spreaders of false energy-related info. And if you want to read this, you can pause it and read it. So, yeah, I mean, it's just proof that there is a lockdown coming because they're trying to silence their opposition because they don't want people raging against the government before it pops into place. All right. And so that's where we're at right now. And give me a moment here. I'm going to share an image. I got to get to my stuff here. And I've shown this before, but there is an energy crisis Illuminati card. Okay. And obviously the gas is empty. If you look at the background, there's a white gauge, you know, a fuel gauge from a car, and it's on empty. And you have a line of cars that are trying to get gas, and there is none. And it says in the flavor text below, a crippling energy shortage affects power blocks worldwide. Right there. They told you that it was coming. This card came out after the 70s oil crisis. This has nothing to do with the 70s oil crisis. This came out in the 90s. This is about a future projection that they want to stop the motor of the world. They tell you that they're going to do it. And I'm going to just show this real quick. I'm not going into great detail on it, but the IEA just released Sheltering from Oil Shocks. It's a PDF document that's still yet to load on my screen. Hold on. Goodness. There we go. And in this, you have a 10-part plan that they have in place. This sounds like a lockdown. I'm going to read it to you. You tell me. Encourage public transport use, alternate day car access in big cities. So one day you won't be able to drive, which is a mandate. They're telling you can't drive. You don't have the freedom to drive. So what does that mean? All right. Then work from home where possible. So there you go. They did that during the pandemic lockdown. It says increase car sharing. So, you know, you're not going to be able to drive your car on your own or do anything or go anywhere. You ain't going to be able to leave your 15-minute city that they're going to designate you in. That is a lockdown. That is a lockdown. All right. Drive commercial vehicles efficiently, they're saying, whatever that entails. Free up LPG for transport for cooking, from transport for cooking. So it's going to get that bad that they're going to conserve gas so that way people can still cook. I suggest getting a fire pit and figuring out where you're going to get wood from to cook at night if it comes down to it. It's also saying switch to alternative modern cooking solutions like electrical burners. But the reality is even electricity is going to be affected by what's happening right now. All right. It's also saying avoid air travel if alternatives exist. So, you know, again, I showed you where travel is basically 80% gone, you know, in Manila. All right. You know, tourists, I just have a friend locally here that's in law enforcement sit here and tell me that he had to cancel his family vacation because of all this. And so, you know, they're saying there's not a lockdown. That's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, man. Of course, there is a lockdown coming right now because of this energy crisis, this fuel shortage that's taking place. And again, you know, even in Australia, there ain't no jerry cans or gas cans available for sale really anymore. The shelves are wiped clean of it. And I've locally here, I've noticed, you know, shelves, you know, on the food shelves, certain shelves are empty of certain items like milk and things like that. You know, what are people going to do? You know, and I've been trying to give people if it's 2 or 3 weeks, I've given you over a month warning to get prepared to do something, even if it's dumpster diving late at night and getting what you can from grocery stores, you know, that still have decent packaging, obviously, on the stuff. If you have no money. Otherwise, if you do have a little extra money, you need to get ramen, rice, and beans and canned meats and maybe dehydrated milk. You know what I'm saying? Those are pretty much important. You need your carbs, you know, to keep working, to garden, things like that. The beans give you protein, and obviously you're going to need canned meat. You want it preserved already, or learn how to can meat and make the meat and can a bunch of cans, you know, a jar for each day or whatever. But even jars are expensive. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of different angles to this, but canned goods are important right now because it's already pre-canned. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm saying they got canned beef, canned chicken, potted meat, corned beef, you know, Spam. Spam has a shelf life of like 20 years. I highly suggest Spam. It has fat, grease that's with it. You can even cook with that grease if you have to fry something up in a pan over a campfire. And the water that is in your vegetable cans and things like that, don't throw that away. You can cook and boil with that. There's a lot of different things that you can do to become frugal in what's happening right now, to feel less of a pinch than what's going on. And the people that have been watching this channel from the beginning of this situation, because I actually covered it before it actually really came to be. I said, watch, they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And sure enough, they did. I was covering this before it ever even was a thing. And I said, watch, they're going to put boots on the ground, and they're already assembling all the troops around Iran to move in on it. There was already boots on the ground rescuing the 2 pilots that got downed in Iran. So I'm not saying told you so, but I'm trying to say, please trust me. I have your best interest in mind. I'm not the final say. Jesus is the final say, but I feel in my spirit to warn you. All right, to warn you of what's happening right now. And again, ramen, rice, beans. You can go out and get a 25-pound bag of rice and a 25-pound bag of beans, or a 5-pound bag of beans, or 10-pound bag of beans, or whatever, for relatively a decent price. Ramen is relatively a decent price, but even, Sister Kimmy, who watches the channel, she was telling me in her area where she lives, ramen doubled in price. It went from 3 something to 7 something. And Laura, one of my top moderators, she is telling me that she went out to buy beef, and a 10-pound tube of beef went from $35 to $50. All right, in 1 month. In 1 month. Because she goes shopping monthly, and a lot of people do that. And Global News Wars was telling me that they went out to buy 3 pounds of beef, and it cost them $30. And then Sister Justa Bird, all right, was telling me, and I think, I'm not going to say the state she lives in because I don't know if she wants me to or not, but where she was at, they wanted just 3 pounds of 80/20 hamburger to make smash burgers with, and it cost them $30. $30. And so, it's a tough situation that we're facing. And a lot of people, they have this complex where they don't want to believe that the ship is sinking. It's kind of like the rich mentality on the Titanic. They're like, God himself couldn't sink this ship. They were looking at each other just dumbfounded. And while the poverty-stricken people kicked into action and got with the program relatively quickly and realized the ship is sinking and began to come out from the lower parts of the ship, the stinking rich, they're playing violins for them and stuff to calm them down and whatnot. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous, but it's the reality of what's happening, especially with America. America has been one of the richest countries on the face of the earth, and they are being turned into a third world country, and we're being invaded by third world invaders. All right, what's to happen when the collapse takes place and all our enemies that are on our soil are ready to rock and roll, and you're not? Yes, exactly. America has been spoiled and pampered. And they wanted to believe that, this kind of collapse couldn't come before a pre-tribulation rapture. But I've been trying to warn people, Jesus left an effective persecuted church. And it seems to me that he's coming back for an effective persecuted church. That persecution is already happening globally in the Sudan, Syria, Nigeria, China, Iran, the more Muslim countries, even in Gaza, Christians are waking up. You know what I'm saying? So there is persecution. All right. And the effectiveness of Christianity is growing because there's a revival happening, and there's people that don't want to get on board with the program because they think that they're inadequate. They think that they can't go out and do the Lord's work. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Noah got drunk. You know what I'm saying? And Jonah ran away. All right. Moses was a stutterer. All right. He didn't know what to say. All right. God gave him the words. Abraham was old. Lazarus died. All right. Peter had a temper. David was a murderer, and he had an affair. All right. Martha, she was nervous and anxiety ridden. All right. Paul was the disciple was a murderer. All right. Jacob was a cheater. Sarah was absolutely impatient, like a lot of the hardcore people that want the rapture to happen now. God is using these things to quicken people's spirits, and people are turning back to him because they see the crisis all around. I'm telling you, the churches are about to fill. I'm telling you, the YouTube churches online are about to fill. The chat rooms are about to fill. And God's people better be ready to have the answers for the people that are seeking the truth. We have got to do everything in our power right now to fight this good fight while we have time to do it. And again, even, Elijah, he was depressed. He wanted to give up. He wanted to die. Doubting Thomas, obviously he's a doubter. God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. I'm going to say that again because I feel it in my spirit. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And you are all called to the service of serving the Lord in these last days. You are alive here, and you are here right now watching this video for a purpose, for a moment. I believe in divine appointment, and I know God is using me to speak to you right now and to motivate you and encourage you and to show you that he has a plan. And as you go forward serving the Lord, he is going to take care of you. He is going to watch over you. He is going to keep you. He is going to keep your family safe. He keeps speaking Psalms 91 over your family, and you don't give up and you don't surrender. You give it your all right now. He has a beautiful plan. And I believe that even though collapse is taking place, and it's a slow collapse, but it's taking place, God is not going to just allow you to survive. He's going to allow you to thrive in what's coming. God knows your needs. He knows the needs of the birds of the air. He knows the needs of the animals of the field. And how much more are you worth than all of those things combined? You are worth so much that Jesus would send that God would send his only begotten Son, that whosoever in this life, sin-ridden and guilty to a fault, would believe in the blood of Jesus Christ and his atoning salvation and his atoning sacrifice, that those people would be saved and have everlasting life. He loved the world so much, didn't hate the world. He hates the sin of the world, but he loves you, and he's got a plan for you. And what's happening right now, it might seem chaotic. It might seem intense. It might seem like I cannot believe that this is happening right now. But the reality is, it's got plan and purpose even through the chaos. And he's going to use this to further his kingdom. His kingdom is about to grow like you've never seen it grow as people have need. And I truly believe that. And I believe that this absolutely is a sign of the last days being upon us. May God bless you in your endeavors and everything that you're about to do for him. May God keep you safe in the days ahead. But please, please do not forget, because God's counting on you to go out there and change the world in which you live.